Welcome to World Revolution. Book Summary, Cues, Master the Secret Language of Charismatic Communication by Vanessa Van Edwards. Cues is about the signals we send unconsciously and how they affect the way others perceive us. The book is geared toward improving your professional life by managing the cues you send and responding appropriately to the ones you receive. Introduction. What are cues? Cues are the subtle signals we send to others, consciously or unconsciously, through our words, tone of voice, body language, and even micro-expressions. According to Van Edwards, mastering these cues can dramatically enhance our ability to connect with others, influence their perceptions of us, and convey confidence, authority, warmth, or trust. Deep dive into different types of cues. In the overview, Van Edwards lays the groundwork for understanding the different types of cues: nonverbal, verbal, vocal, and imagery. She stresses that these elements work together to create an overall impression. She categorizes cues into 1. Nonverbal cues *. These include body language, gestures, eye contact, facial expressions, and posture. Van Edwards discusses how these physical signals play a significant role in how others perceive us and how effective we are in communicating our message. Nonverbal cues can either enhance or undermine the words we speak. For example, if we say we are confident but stand with slouched shoulders, the nonverbal cue contradicts the verbal message. 2. Verbal cues *. This refers to the actual words we choose in our communication. Van Edwards emphasizes that word choice is important in shaping how we come across. Certain words carry more weight, while others dilute our message. For instance, using empowering language versus filler words like or kind of can drastically change how authoritative or clear someone sounds. 3. Vocal cues *. Tone, pitch, volume, and rhythm of speech are considered vocal cues. The sound of your voice can communicate a great deal about your emotional state and intentions. A confident voice with a steady tone communicates strength and competence, while a shaky or quiet voice may indicate uncertainty or nervousness. 4. Imagery cues *. Imagery is about the visuals we use to communicate, whether it's in storytelling, metaphors, or the actual images we incorporate into presentations. Effective use of imagery can help solidify a message and make it more memorable. Visuals can evoke emotions and help create a stronger connection between the speaker and the audience. The science behind cues. Van Edwards integrates behavioral science into her explanations, showing how these cues can either engage or disengage others. She shares insights from studies that show how humans are hardwired to respond to cues, both verbal and nonverbal. When these cues are in sync, people are more likely to be perceived as charismatic, likable, or trustworthy. Conversely, misaligned cues can lead to confusion, mistrust, or a lack of engagement. Charisma and cues. A key takeaway from the overview is that charisma is not an innate trait but a skill that can be cultivated by mastering these cues. Van Edwards argues that anyone can become more charismatic by learning how to wield these signals effectively. She stresses that charisma comes from the combination of two critical elements, warmth and competence. Striking the right balance between these two traits is essential for forming powerful connections. Through cues, one can amplify warmth by smiling, maintaining eye contact, or using inclusive language, or competence by speaking clearly, using authoritative body language, and choosing strong words. Practical implications. Van Edwards provides practical advice for applying these insights into everyday life. By becoming more aware of our own cues and being able to read others' cues accurately, we can improve our social interactions, professional relationships, and leadership skills. She urges readers to be mindful of how they come across and to consciously refine the signals they send to the world. In conclusion, the overview and cues sets the stage for deeper exploration into mastering the art and science of nonverbal and verbal communication. It emphasizes the power of being in control of one's cues to enhance influence and build stronger connections in any context, from boardrooms to casual social settings. Charisma. In 2013, Jamie Siminoff went on to the show Shark Tank to see if he could win over investors for his product. His company had, in fact, already done over $1 million in sales. It was well on its way forward and just needed investment to turn it into a multi-million-dollar business. Chances are, you've at least heard of his company, Ring, best known for doorbell cameras. In 2018, Jamie Siminoff sold Ring to Amazon for over $1 billion. But 5 years earlier, each of the investors on Shark Tank turned him down. While there are many reasons you might get a rejection when you clearly deserve an acceptance, the culprit most likely lies in your unconscious behaviors. So, let's break down Jamie's cues to start. During a demonstration of his product, he knocked on the door and one of the Shark Tank hosts asked who was there. Jamie said his name, but he said it with a rise in voice at the end, making it sound almost like a question. This was a signal of uncertainty and lack of confidence. Furthermore, Jamie failed to recognize and respond to cues given to him by the panel. For example, when he mentioned his $1 million in sales, Mark Cuban's mouth turned down in an upside-down smile, or mouth shrug. It's an unconscious signal that the listener either doesn't connect with what you're saying, doesn't care about it, or doesn't believe it. Jamie was missing a crucial component for success: charisma. Charismatic communication comes down to two things: warmth and competence. The most successful people have the right blend of both, which leads them to be likable and respected, the two of which add up to trust. If you find yourself in this position, you're probably doing well and have a good grasp of how to achieve your goals confidently. The rest of us fall into one of several categories. We may have warmth and no competence, making us well-liked around the office but meaning we get passed over for promotions or left out of important meetings. We may be all competence and no warmth, resulting in high achievement but few invitations to networking events or social gatherings, possibly to the detriment of our own advancement. Or we may be floundering altogether, lacking in either warmth or competence. Cues are the physical or verbal signals that tell others whether we can be trusted. Learning cues consists of two parts. The first is being aware of your own cues, the second is being aware of cues from others. This awareness in your professional conversations can help you get more wins whether you're seeking a promotion, pitching an idea, or just networking. The Charisma Formula. Van Edwards offers what she calls a charisma formula, a simple way to measure how well you are balancing warmth and competence. She suggests imagining a spectrum with warmth on one end and competence on the other. If you are coming across as too warm, you might need to dial up your competence cues, and vice versa. For example, in a professional setting like a job interview, you might want to slightly prioritize competence, but it's still essential to maintain warmth to make a connection with the interviewer. Real-life examples of charismatic figures. Van Edwards references several real-life examples to illustrate how people can embody charisma through cues. She often points to well-known charismatic leaders like Oprah Winfrey, who masterfully balances warmth and competence. Oprah is known for her deep, empathetic listening and warmth when engaging with guests, making them feel comfortable and valued. Simultaneously, she projects competence through her confident speech, powerful presence, and intelligent questioning. Another example is former U.S. President Barack Obama, who frequently uses strong nonverbal cues to project competence, such as his upright posture and composed demeanor, while also smiling and engaging in casual, friendly conversation to show warmth. These figures are able to effortlessly switch between warmth and competence depending on the context, making them appear highly charismatic. Misaligned cues and their impact. Van Edwards dives into the impact of misaligned cues and how they can diminish charisma. For instance, if someone smiles, a warmth cue, while delivering a message of authority or seriousness, it may come off as incongruent. This misalignment can confuse the listener or make the speaker seem insincere. Similarly, a person who speaks in a monotone voice, which lacks warmth, while trying to connect emotionally with someone will struggle to seem charismatic, no matter how competent they may appear otherwise. She highlights the importance of synchronizing cues, making sure that verbal messages align with nonverbal signals. A charismatic person consistently ensures that their words, tone, and body language all tell the same story. Practicing charisma in everyday life. Van Edwards offers readers practical advice on how to practice charisma in everyday situations. For instance, in networking events, one can balance warmth by engaging in genuine conversations, showing interest in others, and smiling. At the same time, competence can be displayed through confident body language, a firm handshake, and succinct, articulate responses. She advises readers to be mindful of how their cues come across in these scenarios and to adjust accordingly. She also talks about the importance of preparation, particularly in high-stakes environments such as public speaking or business meetings. Charismatic people are often those who have rehearsed their communication style, ensuring that their verbal and nonverbal cues align perfectly to project both warmth and competence. Preparing ahead of time helps avoid nervous habits or incongruent cues, such as fidgeting or filler words. Cultivating charisma through self-awareness. Van Edwards highlights self-awareness as a key ingredient for cultivating charisma. By becoming more conscious of the signals you are sending, you can identify areas where you may need to adjust. For example, some people naturally project warmth but struggle to appear competent, while others may seem competent but lack warmth. A charismatic individual is one who is able to assess the situation and make small adjustments to their cues as needed. She recommends practicing in front of a mirror, recording conversations, or asking for feedback from trusted friends or colleagues to see how your cues are being perceived. This self-awareness allows for real-time adjustments and, ultimately, mastery of charismatic communication. Conclusion. In the chapter on charisma, Vanessa Van Edwards demystifies what makes someone charismatic and shows that charisma is a learnable skill. Through a balanced combination of warmth and competence, individuals can refine their social cues to leave lasting impressions. By practicing the right nonverbal, verbal, and vocal signals, anyone can develop the ability to command attention, influence others, and build strong personal and professional relationships. Body language. In most interactions, people are looking for some sort of connection. If your boss is giving you a task, they want some sort of acknowledgement that they've been heard. If a spouse is telling you about their day, they want to feel understood. So let's tie that to a physical action. Think about what you do if you want to see, hear, smell, or touch something more closely. You lean in. Leaning increases your warmth factor, making you seem more reliable and trustworthy to the person you're engaging with. It conveys interest and engagement. It builds a sense of closeness and partnership. So, naturally, the opposite of this gesture is to lean back. Leaning back puts literal distance between you and the person you're speaking with. It also puts emotional distance there. You can lean back or simply not lean in whenever you disagree with what someone is saying. You may also lean back or stand your ground if you need to maintain boundaries with someone. If you notice someone you're speaking to leaning away, try to determine what triggered the lean back. Did you say something that suddenly had them rethinking their agreement with you? Did you cross a physical boundary? Or did you perhaps forget to pop a breath mint before going into this conversation? Whatever the reason, respond appropriately either by respecting the boundary they set or circling back to what you think you said and getting their feedback. Next, let's get into how body language cues are used to affect how people experience a situation. No one does details like Disney. If you've ever been to a Disney theme park, your memories are likely filled with incredible rides, magical castles, or breakfast with Mickey and Minnie. But there is another reason why your experience there felt so welcoming and wonderful. Every Disney employee goes through training on how to behave and respond when communicating with customers, everything from what they say to how they say it. Visual cues are used to make people feel at home. So when you get that fond feeling of being welcomed, it's not an accident. It's precisely on cue. Now, let's talk about the head tilt. This is an example of a cue you can begin using to help increase your warmth factor. Head tilts show that you're interested in or curious about what the other person is saying. You can use a head tilt when you want to convey curiosity, sympathy, or interest. This will help the other person feel more comfortable with you. Don't use a head tilt, however, if you need to hold on to power in the conversation. When you tilt your head, you're exposing your vulnerable neck, and this gesture can sometimes be seen as submissive in nature. If you notice a head tilt in someone else, this is probably good for you, as it means the person is likely interested in what you're saying. But be careful in your relationship with such people. If they are people pleasers, they may be nice to hang out with, but they won't likely help you advance toward your goals. Throwing up walls. In Section 2 we talked about the importance of connection. Leaning in increases your warmth factor and helps the person you're speaking with feel comfortable and heard. The opposite of leaning in would be leaning away. But there are other cues that also signal disconnection, and these cues can be used to help you identify a person who is perhaps not being truthful with you or may be experiencing anxiety. So in addition to leaning away, you also want to look out for blocking. This can come in a few different forms, including covering some part of your body, like your mouth or eyes. Fidgeting with your necklace or anything near the notch in your collarbone is also a form of blocking. You need to be very aware of your unintentional fidgets as they could be signaling fear, anxiety, or a lack of confidence. People will perform blocking gestures if they're hiding something, feeling anxious, or perhaps if they've received some surprising or overwhelming information. If you see someone exhibit this behavior while you're speaking, try to find out what triggered it. It may be that you intended to have an uncomfortable conversation, for instance, in the event of confronting an employee about poor performance. Or it may be that the trigger was unintentional, in which case you can offer solace or space to help smooth things over. A powerful voice. You may be familiar with the reality dating show called Love is Blind. In it, pairs of single people are invited to speak to each other with a wall between them, getting to know and sometimes falling in love with one another without ever seeing each other's face. In one season, a couple named Lauren and Cameron got engaged after only 5 days. 2 years later, they were still happily married. The power of your voice makes a big difference to your success. One study found that doctors whose voice quality received low ratings were sued more than those with higher ratings. There are several important vocal cues to be aware of, including pitch and vocal fry. But the one we're going to talk about in this section is question tone. If you remember Ring founder Jamie Siminoff's story, you'll know that he started his interview off on the wrong foot by asking his name rather than stating it. If you raise the pitch of your voice at the ends of your statements, you're signaling lack of confidence. You're essentially asking your listeners to affirm you and your words. This is easy enough to change, but it helps if you can hear yourself. If you have any recordings of past presentations, listen to make sure there's no question tone at the ends of your statements. If you encounter this in others, it may mean that they are doubtful or lack confidence. You may even want to consider turning them down if they're making a request or seeking further information. It's never just semantics. Word choice matters when communicating in a professional setting. Remember, charisma is the right combination of warmth and competence. This applies to all communication, whether it's talking with a coworker in the break room or sending out a formal email. Warm language might sound like, "I really loved the company retreat yesterday. It was so great getting to know you." Competent language might sound like, "Yesterday we pitched a project to the client. I'm going to brief you on the specifics so we can implement it as quickly as possible." Some of it has to do with the content of the conversation, but some of it comes down to word choice. You could easily turn the second example into a warmer example by saying, "The client loved our pitch yesterday. I'm excited to work with you on this project, so let's get started." Words like loved and excited are warmer and more emotion-based. Words like brief and implement are a little colder. But word choice is directly related to intent. So let's talk about one important pitfall to avoid: being boring. Boring is the antithesis of charisma. It's an absence of warmth or personality, and if you come across as boring, no matter how competent you are, you're likely to remain invisible and unheard. To avoid being boring, put more intention into your communications. Decide what your goal is for the communication and infuse it with the right sort of warmth or competence in language. Seeing is believing. Before his career as a comedian, David Nihill was a regular job hunter like anyone else. On his first day at a new job, he realized he'd shrunk all his shirts in the dryer. He decided to roll with it by rolling up his sleeves so no one would notice how short they were. This visual cue inadvertently altered his image around the office. The sight of sleeves rolled up puts people in mind of someone getting ready to dig in and get to work. He was viewed as a problem solver rather than a guy whose shirt sleeves were too short for him. Nihil had created a brand for himself. Visual cues like this can be used in many places, and are often associated with branding and marketing. You're essentially branding yourself when you subscribe to a certain look or visual. When using visuals for yourself, the key is to be authentic and intentional. Make sure the visuals you choose are things you can be consistent with. And remember the warmth and competence factors. Do you want to increase your warmth factor? Consider playful visuals like pins or new hair accessories. For increasing your competence factor, use a color like blue to convey calmness. With visual cues, do watch out for unconscious bias. Be aware of your own visual cues and notice whether, by changing them, you've experienced any changes in your relationships. Pay attention to your own reactions to other people's visual cues and question your own bias. Common biases include the idea that male job applicants are more competent and female applicants are warmer. Studies have been done that show that resumes with white names get more calls for interviews than resumes with black names. They also show that how attractive you are affects your salary. Keep all this in mind as you dress, decorate your desk, choose letterhead, and any other way that you represent yourself visually. Conclusion. How we hold ourselves, how we speak, what we say, and how we look are all factors in our ability to succeed at work. Charisma is often a deciding factor in whether we get the promotion we want or manage to sway investors. When thinking about charisma, we're looking at two factors, warmth and competence. Cues come in many forms, but they're all directly related to our warmth and competence factors. When you lean in while someone is speaking, you're performing a warm gesture designed to increase loyalty and trust. When you stand tall and take up space, you're conveying power and competence. It's important to be conscious of cues in all your professional interactions. Controlling your own cues can help you succeed. And recognizing cues in others can help you respond appropriately. Thank you for listening. I hope this content is useful to you. If you like this kind of content, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel to support our team.